Orientation information session. I want to thank everybody for being here. For those who ran and were elected, welcome. Those of you continuing on for a second year, welcome back. So with that, I think I'm going to let Sean take it from there.
All right. You covered that, Bill. So if you're attending remotely, we just ask that you mute your microphones.
Your mic, Sean.
Oh, just like I'm doing. Mute your microphones. If you're attending remotely, please mute your microphones. This meeting is going to be recorded, so you can watch it tonight or watch it at your leisure at some other time, like over the weekend, right? Save your questions till the end of the presentation, and we will answer them all. There'll be an opportunity for that. And with that, I have an introduction, a Welcome to Columbia video. Thanks, Julia.
Welcome to Columbia Association. You're joining a decades-long legacy of service to our community, grounded in a spirit of improving quality of life. At the core of that is CA, which is uniquely ingrained in the natural resources and amenities that make Columbia, Columbia. This is truly a one-of-a-kind organization, providing everything from top-notch wellness services to vibrant arts opportunities, nationally recognized recreational programs, thousands of acres of open space, and more, all in the spirit of convening and connecting people of all ages, backgrounds, and experiences. We are committed to preserving our history for generations to come, maintaining our special spaces to the highest possible standard, leading in sustainability efforts, supporting the 10 villages and countless partners, and curating a sense of belonging for those who engage with us. In other words, community happens here. Over the next few minutes, we'll give you a sense of the breadth and impact of CA. CA employs hundreds of team members, most of whom are Howard County and Columbia residents. The unique financial structure of the organization relies on revenue from memberships and various programs and annual charge payments made by property owners, both residential and commercial. This allows CA to carry out a wide variety of functions across the entire community. CA owns and manages about 3,600 acres of accessible open space, which includes 3 lakes, more than 40 ponds, and more than 30 miles of stream valleys. We're also charged with upholding the connectivity of 95-plus miles of pathway and maintaining more than 170 play areas, known as tot lots. This doesn't just mean keeping things clean and beautiful year-round. Our team of experts is dedicated to sustainable approaches, including removing invasive plants and adding native ones to our environment, and taking intentional, informed measures to protect our invaluable watershed. Stewardship and safety are always top priorities, and engaging volunteers is a big part of that. At the core of our mission to enhance quality of life is providing spaces and places for people to improve their wellness. At CA, that includes fully equipped gyms, outdoor pools, racket sports and pickleball areas, basketball courts, an art center, space for youth and teens, sports park and skate park, an ice rink, golf courses, and more. In total, more than 60 CA facilities house countless wellness and recreation opportunities, boasting about 2 million visits a year. CA is also home to the Columbia, Maryland Archives, where our history is researched, preserved, and celebrated. CA works constantly to make sure our programs and expertise are accessible to all. For example, CA is proud to host Lakefront Live, a series of free music performances and movies throughout the summer, working with partners to ensure those events are representative of our diverse community. Whether it's an open house gallery, a free pickleball lesson, or the annual trunk or treat, CA is constantly seeking ways to reach all corners of our community, giving them the chance to experience everything Columbia has to offer. Guided by the principles established by founder James Rouse, grounded in environmental stewardship, fiscal responsibility, inclusivity, and the enrichment of people, CA is constantly changing to meet the evolving needs of those we serve. We are driven by shared values, positive impact, and intentionality. And we hope you are too.
All right. Now we have a presentation. I feel like I'm just giving it to Wes and Delilah because I think everyone else here kind of knows everything, all the information here. So it'll be a refamiliarization for the board members, but you all will. Some of it is going to go by fast. Other stuff, you're going to get the presentation and be like, what just happened? Like, I didn't pick up any of that, particularly as it comes to like our governance structure. So with that, all right, Julia, thanks. Yeah, thank you. So briefly in this presentation, I'm going to walk through like who we serve, who we are. Susan Krabbe is going to go over our financial and budget overview. She'll hand it back to me. I'll just talk about our structure, how we're structured here at CA on a very high level. And then you'll hear from Susan under Administrative Services, Jeremy from Community Operations, Dan for Community Programs and Services and Marketing, and then Armsby about Information Technology. So, all right. This is always great to show and highlight that CA in Columbia is 25, almost 26,000 residential properties, 1,100 commercial properties. We have a population of 107,000. You'll hear me talk about that a lot. It's a city, but because we have 10 villages, it feels very town-like, and I think this is what the appeal of the community is. We have 6,400 businesses, 91,000, almost 92,000 employees in the community. Our facilities have over 17,500 memberships and over 2.4 million visits a year, so it's quite an operation. What do we do? We're a steward and service provider. I won't go through all of these things, but the highlight, over 3,600 acres of open space, 119 miles of active transportation network, which, that just adds up, but basically we always say 95 miles of pathways, 171 play areas, boardwalks, 50 lakes and ponds. No, I think that's 5 lakes and ponds. Pickleball courts, tennis club, art center, youth and teen center, ice rink. I can go on and on. So it's quite an operation, and it provides a variety of services to the community. So it's a really robust organization. Oh, and 2 golf courses. Who is the leadership? You've met me, the president and CEO, Susan Krabbe, as our senior VP and chief financial officer. Susan has been a great asset here for 27 years. She'll be retiring soon, so she will be missed greatly. And we're currently in the process of looking for other candidates, so very hard to replace. Dan Burns is our Vice President of Community Services and Programming. Jeremy Scharfenberger is our Vice President of Community Operations. Jeremy's over there. Timothy Pinnell is our Director of Marketing. I don't think Tim is here. Monica McMillan Ajayi is our Director of Human Resources and DIB. Stephanie Nestor, Director of Finance and Treasurer. Jackie Tuma, Director of Audit and Advisory Services. Jackie's here. Armsby Carbon, our IT Director. He's right down there. And Judge John Kuchno is our General Counsel right there. So great group. In my short time here, they are an amazing group to work with, very professional, very knowledgeable. So I think you'll appreciate working with them. On a larger scale, we have a non-peak, about 925 team members. That equates to 425 full-time equivalents. This 35,000 hours is just an average pay period, number of hours. And the average gross pay is about $1 million. So it's, like I said, robust operation. All right, Susan.
Oh, thank you. Hey, thanks. I will probably I'll talk quickly, but so please circle back with questions at the end, as Sean asked. So what is Columbia Association? So we're a community service organization, and under the IRS code, we're a 501c4, which is a tax-exempt nonprofit, but it's not a charitable organization, we pay sales and property taxes, but we don't pay income taxes. So generally, donors to Columbia Association aren't able to take a tax deduction because we're not a charitable organization. We've funded, as Sean mentioned, a combination of annual charge payments from residential and commercial property owners, and then from the income for our services and programs. Also, we get some grants occasionally. We've gotten some lately, and we have some investment income. So the board of directors, one of your most important and probably fairly time-consuming responsibilities is to oversee the budget process. And it's the board that ultimately decides how CA will earn and spend its money. And, that's really the most tangible demonstration of the priorities of the organization is how the funds are spent. You'll be, I think, comforted to know that the organization's finances are in great shape as we close out this fiscal year. We are evaluating the impact of some of these new taxes and the fees that have been levied by the state of Maryland. And as well, we are feeling some effects from the tariff and other uncertainty on the cost of goods and availability. But overall, doing great. So we've been, first I should back up and say, just to level set, the fiscal year that we talk about starts May 1, which is a little odd. It's May 1 through April 30. So when we talk about FY26, we're in that. We started that today, so Happy New Year. And that'll end April 30, 2026. CA's, again, doing well. We had a clean opinion from a clean external audit in FY24. That process has just started, and I would expect nothing less for this year. Annual charge revenue has continued to be solid and stable. We have seen some commercial property reductions. Those are called abatements. You'll see that in some valuations, but nothing overly concerning at this point. We had, coming out, in COVID, we had ramped up our reserves for that, but have brought that back down pending how really commercial real estate goes. Memberships and program fees have been increasing. That's kudos to Dan and his team, a combination of sort of ongoing recovery from a participation standpoint and small rate increases. It's a solid cash position and strong cash flow from operations. The cash flow is very cyclical during the year, so we get a big influx of cash in late July, early August, and then we chip away at that really throughout the year. The average monthly cash needs is about $7.2 million, and that peaks some months. If there's 3 pay periods, to get into details, it's about $11 million. And then I really should congratulate the board. The CA board back in 2021 approved the founding of an emergency cash reserve. So CA never had that, and that caused a lot of problems and severe angst in COVID. And so the board then rectified that situation and established this program. So funding for FY25, the year ending this April, was the board approved $5 million. So pie chart, these are in the budget document and on the online budget, just shows you where the money comes from. So the biggest single piece, interestingly, is community programs and services. It's about 39% of the total. Residential annual charge is a close second at 37%, 32 million. And the commercial properties, just under 19. So looking at that in more detail, the community programs and services, that's 106% of the residential annual charge, and it's clearly essential to providing the services and amenities that Columbians love and that make Columbia special. Pre-COVID, this number was 80 million, so in FY20, it was 80 million. The next year, it dropped to 55, and we've been regaining that ground since. So where does it go? The majority of it, well, not majority, 41%, the single largest piece goes to community programs and services. This is the villages, without any consideration for the facilities that they use about 6.3%. We spend a lot on capital, that's almost 16%, and community operations at 21%. Capital budget for FY26 is $14.5 million. So this is it's demonstrated shown in these three categories, which are just three types of capital projects. The first one represents primarily sustainability projects. The second, category 2, is sort of phased, non-recurring major investments in facilities. Both category 1 and 2 projects are specifically identified before in the budget process, and the board approves those specifically. Last, the category 3 projects are smaller. It's periodic maintenance, it's equipment, and upgrades to facilities. And I'll give you some examples of those later. So the annual charge, you're all familiar with that. It's a formula with two components. There's a rate and a cap. The board establishes those every year. The cap has been 3.5% since 2017. The legislative limit to that is 10%. And this is what limits the amount by which a property's valuation can increase year over year. So the rate for 25 and for FY26 and the 26 budget is 68 cents. So the maximum 75, that's almost 10% less. This is the 22nd consecutive year that rate has been held to 68 cents. And that equates to about $3.36 a day for the average residential property. So interestingly, this is a unique formula. There aren't any others that I'm aware of, any other planned communities that have such a progressive formula where it's based on valuation and not just a flat fee for everybody. And it's unusual to include commercial properties. And 1,100 commercial properties are paying $18 million. It's a significant contribution. So it's a non-discretionary fee. It's a contract payment. It's not a tax. Only governments can levy or impose taxes. But because of that being a payment under a contract, is why it's generally not tax deductible. But then I always say, see your tax professional before you take any steps. So lots of details here, and you'll have the presentation, so I won't go into a lot of this. This is a summary of cash flows. We always provide, for context, 3 years of actual data and then a couple years of projections, so you can see how the organization's doing. We've generated in cash for the past, 3 prior years. It looks like we're starting to now use that cash that was generated previously, primarily because we're flattening out a little bit on what cash is generated from operations, and we're increasing the capital spend, which is necessary, and we'll talk about where that is. Let's see. So this graph, you will not ever be able to read the numbers on this from here, but it's a nice picture of how the annual charge is used to support the various departments and programs and functions of CA. So on the left, it's annual charge revenue and the investment income. So those are revenues that are not tied to services, and it's about $51 million, I think. And on the right, it shows, we're showing how much each of our areas need or rely on the annual charge, how the annual charge supports the programs and services of CA. So this is a representation that's more like your own personal budget. It's kind of more of a cash type presentation. So it might be, we got feedback to include representations like this that might make it more relatable. So community programs and services is that pale blue on the top right. It's about the fourth one down, $3,547,000. That's only reliant on about 7% of the annual charge revenue. The villages are at 11%, and community programs and community operations, mainly the open space and sustainability and lake construction and lakefront programs, takes about 37% of that. Capital budget overview, I mentioned that it's $14.5 million. Pre-COVID was at least $15 million a year. In FY 21 and 22, we cut that to $8 million because of just cash constraints and just the unknowns from the pandemic and how they would impact really human behavior. But this $14.5 million is decent funding. It certainly addresses the board's priority of open space stewardship. Jeremy had noted that we're achieving some replacement cycles that a lot of other organizations would just have as aspirations. And it's still keeping the focus on maintenance and safety investments, but we are able to make some aesthetic and programmatic improvements with this funding. So, and it's a lot, you know, it's $130 million worth of built stuff, and a lot of it is older. So this is really kind of a minimum funding level for capital. In the budget, you'll see some of the key investments. Biggest chunks are going to community operations, to the open space amenities, built environment pathways, bridges, play areas, et cetera. There's some investment in community programs and services that includes some work at Supreme and Wild Lake Tennis, and that the golf courses mainly focused on irrigation and pathways there. And then the Category 3, these are allocations based on the fixed asset values on the balance sheet. Again, the single largest user of that is open space projects. Aquatics, and that includes the indoor and outdoor pools, is slated to have $765,000. I think they've sucked up all of that already, right, for the summer season. Pretty close, right? Let's see. So memberships and fees, you know, as long as I have been here, and I know it precedes me because I've seen older stuff, the goal is to price the programs and services to encourage participation to the greatest extent possible. So in this budget, again, we kept the fees in line. We've got a lot of inflationary pressure and wage pressure to overcome. The Howard County minimum wage went up again in January by 7%, but we are still holding those any price increases to a range of 3 to 4%. Dan did a great presentation in the fall that's worth looking at again. We're offering income qualified memberships. There's Columbia cards that have guest passes. There are free swim days. It was a total of $1.4 million in discount or free opportunities for participation. And the Village Community Associations, so they're separate 501c4s. They have their nonprofit corporations. They have their own boards, bylaws, et cetera. The FY26 budget allocates $7.2 million in total support to them. This is often, so I just want to point out that these are annual grants. It's a longstanding commitment, longstanding arrangement that's not required or mentioned in CA's governing documents or the villages. The villages occupy and manage 24 of the CA's community buildings and neighborhood centers. That's at no rent to them, and they generate revenue that stays in the village from the use of those buildings. And that's it. Back to you, Sean.
Oh.
I'll come. Get my steps.
All right, so this is just a brief overview of CA's organizational structure. I think it's good to know. On a very high level, there's the Office of the President, and underneath that is Administrative Services, which is Susan's group, Community Operations, which is Jeremy's group, and Community Programs and Services, which is Dan's group. And they'll elaborate on those as we go. The President's office under me, just in my office, is the Office of General Counsel. Also Audit and Advisory Services, Communications and Media Relations, that's Danica Rhines and her crew. Community Planning, that's Judelle Campbell, and Special Projects Manager is Julia, wears many hats. So, all right, now back to Susan, huh? How about this? I'll just hold this for you. I'll go through it.
That'd be great. Okay, so I like to say that we're sort of the backbone of CA. We're largely behind the scenes functionality that supports the organization. Probably the single largest group is the finance team. It's accounting, finance, payroll, and procurement. So if we had a motto or a slogan, it would be no margin, no mission. And we're a strategic and tactical group that handles all of the transactions of the organization. So it's very important. We're committed to leading with excellence and providing the information that's reliable for you and for Sean and managers to use to make the day-to-day and the strategic decisions. So we're also very focused on process improvements and digital transformation, and we are passionate about preserving and maintaining CA's credit worthiness and tax exempt status. So we do procurement handles about 200 requests for proposals in a year. Those membership transactions, those 17,000 plus, 500 plus memberships, that's 165,000 membership transactions. We issued about 1,600 W-2s, so 925 employees, but they do come and go. And our credit rating was an issuer credit rating was upgraded by Moody's in 2015 to AA1. So, human resources, this is a diverse and robust team that handles HR operations, that's supporting managers and the workforce and key processes throughout the organization. Human Resource Information System, the HRIS, it's a new, highly functioning team, very excited about them, that are leading system configuration and functionality improvements there. And the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, the DEIB team, continues to make supporting a diverse workforce our priority. We do skills-based, they were responsible for getting CA to implement skills-based hiring, for example. We just had Culture Day this week where employees showcased their cultures and we all got to learn about them. Learning and OD, this is a group that really has to be flexible and nimble. They have just recently helped the organization implement the training requirements for new heat safety standards that are coming on, just became effective, so we had to jump into that quickly. We partner with the library and provide access to over 17,000 courses through LinkedIn Learning for our team. And we're working very hard. Our goal is to make CA the best employer in Howard County. And we think we do that. Risk management. So this program has several facets. There are two self-insurance programs that we workers' comp and general liability, the whole and an array of safety and risk mitigation and management attributes in the program. So listed here are things that you would expect. We are identifying risk through inspections. We hire experts. We do training. There's signage. We keep things locked, and we purchase coverage and self-insurance. We also do our utmost best to transfer risk to our vendor partners to the greatest extent possible, and you'll hear more about that. So that's it.
And now, Jeremy, media operations.
Okay, good evening. So Jeremy Scharfenberg, Director or Vice President of Community Operations. So I'll sort of keep the flow going and do a deep dive into the department that I steward. Let's see. So it's already been mentioned several times in terms of some statistics around open space and all the great amenities we have out in the community. And so my department is really in charge of sort of stewarding our natural environment as well as our built environment. That's sort of the core of what my department does. So that includes turf and forest management of the open space park system, oversight of major capital projects, renovations, HVAC replacements, for example, installation and maintenance of play spaces, pathways, bridges, clean energy systems, solar PV, electric vehicle infrastructure throughout the community, community environmental programs. We're really proud of how effectively we engage the community in this mission. We really view, just to sort of deep dive into that a little bit, we can do really great things within our own operations and our own buildings and our own open space. But we can do much more if we engage the community to help us in that mission, to do some of the same things within their own property, right within their own homes and their yards, but then also working with us in open space. We only have so many staff, but as Sean mentioned, there's 107,000 residents in Columbia that we can actively engage. And then general facilities maintenance and construction are some of the other key aspects. So within the department itself, there are basically four core divisions, and that's the open space division, and then within that, there's event services. So all the events that you see going on in the community, Lakefront Live, 4th of July is sort of like our Super Bowl. We've been planning for that for months already. Capital improvement, so that's the team that directly oversees the basically sort of the built assets within open space. So that's the play areas, the bridges, the pathways themselves, the parking lots, sidewalks, basically all the major capital improvements in open space. And then construction and facility services. So we have about 600,000 square feet of building space, ranging from a 100,000 square foot Supreme Sports Club down to a small residential structure that serves as a neighborhood center that's about 2,000 square feet. We have an ice rink, as you all know. We have golf course facilities. We have a tremendously diverse building portfolio that our team is responsible for managing. And then sustainability. So this is sort of, again, making CA, as was mentioned in the video and as Sean has talked about, we're really a leader in environmental sustainability, focusing on energy efficiency, clean energy, watershed management, and our invasive species program. And then just to sort of talk a little bit more about open space in particular, so there's sort of a lot that happens within this team. So that's the dog park. There are wildflower meadows throughout open space that we're starting to deploy and grow. Tree management is very significant. We do a lot of that because, a significant portion of our pathways are within our forested open space. And so there are significant safety concerns associated with making sure those pathways are maintained properly. General pathway maintenance, our pathways are exceptional. And I really like, not if there's anybody from the county watching, but there are very clear lines of demarcation in naturalized areas where you can tell you are moving from a CA-maintained pathway or space into a county space. Let's see, deer management, that's become a sort of increasingly important issue in the community. That's sort of handled within open space. And then Lakefront Live, and events throughout the community. There's a significant amount of staff effort that goes into making all these events really successful, both events that are held at the village level, so like the spring fairs, the fall fairs, as well as the concert series that's about to ramp up next month. And then construction facility services. So we handle about 2,000 work orders every year within our facilities. That's drywall repairs, that's an issue, a leaking faucet or something at a club. It takes a significant amount of work to maintain all of our facilities at their high level of performance. We have sprinkler inspections, we have elevator inspections, we have alarms. There's just a tremendous amount of infrastructure that we maintain and operate to do what we do to serve our community, to serve our members, to meet all of those high expectations, to give a high quality product. And we have about 385 major pieces of mechanical equipment throughout our operations that all have to be running. They all have to, their uptime has to be 100%, because if some boiler goes down and their water temperature isn't right, we know about it. So we are really aggressive in maintaining everything effectively. Let's see. Okay, capital improvements. So the other aspects of capital improvements is our RV park, for example. We have a lot of fleet management. We have about 100 vehicles that we maintain and operate throughout the community to do what we do. And then a small armada of different types of turf management equipment, Kubota tractors, plows, for example, the whole gambit of machinery to do what we do in open space. We coordinate really effectively day to day almost with Howard County Public Works, interfacing with what they do and how they serve the community and how it impacts our residents most effectively. Like there's water main projects happening, there's sewer replacement projects that impact open space. So there's a tremendous amount of coordination that our team executes day in and day out with Howard County to serve the broader Columbia community. And then event services, I talked about that a little bit. 4th of July is coming up, Lakefront Live. And then sustainability. So our programs, again, I touched on the community aspect of it. Some of our key programs, some of our flagship programs for the community are Weed Warriors, Stream Waders, Adopt-A Spots, where we actually engage our community members to steward little small plots within their community that are really effective. I think we just had 3 or 4 of those created this month. We have a 10-acre solar farm up in West Friendship that covers about 25% of our power. That system's coming on about 10 years old at this point. We were one of the first virtual aggregate net metering solar programs in the state. We have a combined heat and power generator that was also the first in Howard County that provides power to Supreme Sports Club as well as generating hot water. We're nationally recognized. We have reduced our energy use by 1/3 as an organization since 2012. We've cut our carbon footprint by about 70% as an organization during that same time frame. When we've won national awards from both the EPA's Energy Star program as well as the Department of Energy's Better Buildings program. And then we also have our land administration division. Again, I mentioned the county coordination. So there's easements, access to our property. The GIS team just did a really fantastic presentation last month on some of the tools and resources we have available for our residents to more effectively engage with our amenities and our programs. And we're happy to continue to develop that as a resource for our residents. And that's community operations. I'll hand it over to Dan.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for being here. So Community Programs and Services, it's a small but mighty team. Year-round, we have about 600 regular team members, and then when those little things called the outdoor pools open, we double that. So we're just under 1,200 team members right now. They're all getting trained and ready to go. The first pool opens this weekend. Stevens Forest opens for lap swim. And then May 24th.
Will you be there?
May 24th. They officially open. It's that time of year. But that team really focuses on the primary goal that we drive is providing leadership and support in our community around our 5 pillars of wellness. And as you look and see everything we do, these pillars of wellness travel and intermingle through everything that we do, all the services, all the programs. That's the physical, that's the walking paths, that's the clubs, the sports park, the social. We are a community-based organization. That is what Columbia is all about. It was interesting during COVID. Everybody talked about brick and mortar going away, but community is actually what drove people back, and they couldn't wait to get back. The intellectual, the mental, or the intellectual growth, whether it's the Art Center, the archives, the education that Jeremy's team does, all the things we do, we really pull that through the entire body of our work. One that we are really leaning into finding our voice for this year is mental well-being. We just received back the results from the Howard County Health Assessment Survey, which we are a sponsor of. And between this and the last one, the growth and the challenges around mental well-being and loneliness have increased dramatically. And a lot of the things that we provide, a lot of things that I just talked about, provide support for mental well-being. But we can use our voice and our expertise in various areas. I met with the medical advisory board last night, and we talked a lot about this, to provide the comfort and the ability for the community to be free to talk about it and find help, and us to help guide them in the right direction to the right support networks. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so you'll be seeing a lot of things this month around that from us, and then continuing throughout the year. And then the environmental management and sustainability is key. It was actually just an anecdote. I was at the Art Center a few weeks ago for the Congressional Youth Art Show that happens every year. Each congressional district does an art show. And I was talking about this, and one of the young artists had done a portrait that was made out of bubblegum wrappers. So we have the art and the sustainability come right back, and it actually took second place. But it was a pretty amazing piece. But that's really where we all focus on, how do we pull this through everything that we do? Appealing to all ages and demographics. Columbia is diverse in all ways, and we really want to make sure that we're providing services for everyone that reach all of those. Everything from, we have the mini golf that brings all ages, a variety of classes and programs across all the facilities, the multicultural programming. We really do have a very diverse group of opportunities. And then continuing to expand accessibility and affordability. As we talked about, it was brought up, 2.4 million visits and engagements, participations last year across the team. That is a lot. And we work very hard to make that accessible, managing the membership rates as best we can. But then, as Susan had mentioned, from just a direct fee support, that was over annually $1.4 million. That doesn't count staff time running the programs or doing other things, but direct fee support. So there is a lot of support that goes into making the programs accessible. The Columbia Card was mentioned. The Columbia Card is if you don't have a membership, but you're a Columbia resident, you can get a Columbia Card, which gives you discounts on programs and services for being a resident. We have 5,000 Columbia Card residents, members, in addition to the 17,500 memberships that are purchased. So there's a very large opportunity for participating. Now, that entire team, and I'm not going to go through all of these because we can just be here all night, a lot have been mentioned, but really what the team encompasses is a lot. From the archives, which is right here in headquarters, the multicultural program, Robin Stimson and community engagement, which really ties us in and finds community partners for us to reach the community in much greater depth and find those who may not be showing up and help them engage. The sports park, camps, multicultural programming, the art center, the 4 tennis clubs, 3 fitness clubs. And unless you live under a rock, you know about the 23 outdoor pools. That is the foundation of Columbia. The Youth and Teen Center in Oakland Mills, it's a wonderful place that the kids feel very comfortable with and love going to. The golf clubs. So there's the ice rink. There's school-age services before and after school care. So there is a lot of ways that the team engages with the community and find ways to really add value. And just quickly, looking at some of the programs, whether it's group fitness, over 20% of our visits to the fitness clubs are group fitness participants. That is a big part. That's a big part of that community. The glasswork and painting classes at the Art Center. We have so many team building activities that go on there. And again, if you've been living under another rock, you don't know anything about pickleball, because pickleball is everywhere, just like the outdoor pools. That is a very big thing. We have the largest First Tee of Howard County program in the state. The language cafes to bring different people, different cultures together to learn language or just find somebody to speak their native tongue in. The archives doing their displays. There's going to be one at the Art Center for the Art Center grand reopening on the 17th. Aaron did a display about the history of the Art Center, which is very interesting. It has a long and storied history. But there's a lot of different ways that the team brings it all together and brings things alive for the community. How do we get the word out about that? That's our Department of Marketing. They really do a tremendous job getting the message out. They work in close conjunction with communications team. Really it's about how do we enhance awareness of CA so people know we're here and drive that engagement, drive memberships. We've talked about how important memberships are and program growth, so we have to make sure that's continuous. It is a very competitive market. And really with the customer experience, whether it's the visual through the website, customer care is part of the marketing team. There's a couple 100,000 visits a year that come through individually through the customer care team. So they're really responsible for that messaging and that brand strategy, the program promotion and growth, the website and the digital experience that you see and feel is the responsibility of the marketing team. The customer care and welcome center, that's part of that team. And then all the wonderful visuals that you see that represent CA come in-house from our graphics and creative services team, Cindy and Suzanne. They do amazing jobs to help draw people's attention and get the message out about all the wonderful things that go on here. And with that, I will turn it over to Armsby.
Thank you, Dan. Fumble. Got it. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Armsby Carbon. I am the Director of IT here at CA. And before I actually get started, I've got two members here from my team who happen to be in the room. Ben Brenneman, he's our IT Operations Manager, and we've got Andrew Slavik sitting right behind me. A lot of what we do, especially in ways that we support the organization and the board, actually that service delivery comes from their team, so it's great to have them and their support tonight. But IT operations, we're about a 15-body strong team here at CA, and we actually report into the Office of Admin Services, so we're a strong and mighty team in connection with HR, finance, and our procurement partners. So a couple of things I really want you to focus on this slide in terms of IT. So we really focus on the infrastructure side of CA in terms of, building resiliency in everything that we do, not only from the systems that we provide, but, the networks that it sit upon, as well as the hardware that we deliver. So a lot of our work is focused on minimizing risk for the organization where technology is concerned and in other spaces. We are a big arm about and focus around best of breed of technology. So when we think about the strategic framework and how that connects to modernization in a lot of the efforts that we do, that's something that we try to enable for the organization. Some key responsibilities in our spaces. So we enable business objectives. So that could be in the shape of a project, in the shape of rolling out a new technology solution, and really just enabling ways for the team to work better for the community as well as our internal team members. We also do a lot in the security landscape. There's a lot of information that we collect, and there's a big effort around protecting that information, not only team members' information, but customer data as well, and I'll speak to what that effort looks like in a later slide. We take on responsibility and stewardship for the governance of all the enterprise class information systems that we have within the organization. So that could be our financial systems, our HR systems, procurement systems, and really our CRM and anything else that falls within that class. We provide a lot of support, management, and maintenance of the network infrastructure here at CA, as well as end user hardware, all the tools and utilities that they use. And connected to our security program, we do a lot of cyber awareness training, which for the board is also mandatory in your spaces. And you could expect to see this on a quarterly basis. And we appreciate the full participation to keep us compliant. All right, so just a quick scope view of what IT does. So Susan mentioned that we issue over 1,600 W-2s. On average, annually, we service about 1,400 team members through roughly 6,000 service requests that come into our department. So that could be anything from a break-fix request, but it's a lot of work supported by 15 people who we try to get that done very efficiently so we don't disrupt the organization. So it's a tremendous effort to maintain service delivery in our space here in CA. So that service extends to the board. So as you guys engage with CS technology, you will be reaching out to IT for any roadblocks you may encounter from a technology perspective as well. We have roughly 1,200 assets in our hardware footprint. That could be anything from a scanner, a barcode scanner, to some AV equipment and monitors, desktops, phones, tablets. So we use pretty much the full gamut of technology here at CA in open space and our community programs and services, as well as knowledge service areas in office spaces and conference rooms as well. So we manage all of it pretty well. It's a very secure system. It's a lot to manage, but Ben and Drew and others from our team really do a good job at keeping us intact with that. So we have also a lot of connected spaces. Most recently, we partnered with Howard County, leveraging their inter-county broadband network to extend connectivity to 23 outdoor pools. So those pools now have redundant fiber in those spaces and Wi-Fi, so the community can enjoy those amenities, in addition to all our buildings, clubs, and other spaces. So a significant effort and a great partnership with the county, and just another example of how well we work in those spaces. So we've got over 96 technology solutions deployed. So again, you think of any system you may touch, from a productivity system, a work management system, or a customer and member management systems, all the way down to graphic GIS systems. It's quite a bit of technology that powers what we do here at CA in different ways. And it's a lot to maintain, but we make sure we roll out those solutions and keep them sustained for the teams that need to use it to do that work. And internally, just a little bit of nerd stats. We manage over 54 processes here in IT. So team members come to us for project management services, anything around risk management, change and configuration management, DevOps. We do a lot of scripting, coding, automation, and reporting. So it's quite a significant operation here at CA that, it's not seen all the time, but it's definitely felt in how we deliver services and how we connect with our partner departments to make sure our community feels the service delivery through the technology that we leverage. Our security program, I'm not going to go very much into detail here. This is a public meeting, and we're not going to, showcase a lot for our adversaries. But we do follow a very prescribed and standard framework for our security program, and it's through the National Institute of Standards and Technology. This really guides us in how we structure and secure our systems, how we manage our data, everything from the governance that starts at the top, all the way to how a solution is deployed, maintained, and in adverse situations, how we respond to incidents around, data and information security. So we've got a team that's very connected to that work. We've got a virtual chief information security officer who we partner with to help guide some of that work and bring some of the best of breed practices into our space. But I wanted to share with the board that make sure that you have a sense of reassurance that we take information and data security extremely seriously here at CA and in a very structured way. So a few things more specific for the board in terms of how you would access our systems. Wesley and Delilah, this is probably more pertinent for you. You will be issued a CA-specific board email address, and that is going to be your identity to access all systems within CA that you'll be able to reach. So everything that we do here pretty much is connected through single sign-on. Is everyone familiar with single sign-on, using one identity to access many systems? And just to note that your board email convention would be your first name, period, last name, @ca-board.org, okay? We will require that board members set up MFA. That typically is connected to your phone. We'll get you set up in that space to have that extra layer of security to access our systems. If for any reason you do not want to use your phone to support that MFA, we do have hardware tokens that we can issue to you so that you could access the information as well. Oh, one more thing I'll highlight here, just to note that the board email convention @ca-board.org, specific to the 10 sitting board members. All other CA team members would be @columbiaassociation.org, okay? So if you ever email anyone outside of the board, that's the convention. Okay, we will, each board member is actually issued a CA approved device, and we manage those devices centrally. We will be doing a device hardware refresh this term. Okay, so Bill, we're gonna get a lot lighter, a lot more streamlined on those devices. So for those of you who already have those devices in, they will be recalled, and we'll reissue a device for your use. We are going to leverage some Surface devices. It gives you a little bit more lightweight, powerful tool that also serves as a tablet and just makes it a little bit more accessible for you to use our services as well. Okay. Once these devices are issued, you will be required to sign off or attest to the acceptable use policy. I definitely advise that you read through that just to understand what the do's and don'ts are in terms of leveraging CA's information technology. And some key systems that the board will be interfacing with, of course, our productivity tools. We are a Microsoft shop, so most of the file sharing and documents that you will receive will be in Word, PowerPoint, or any real Microsoft productivity tools format. We also have Microsoft Teams. This is where you can access some of the shared drive services and legacy files that the board leverages. And last thing, we also have a board operations work app. Primarily that is used less or so if you need any tech support from IT. That's the space that you would go in and submit a form and a request for that. But primarily it's used to submit any inquiries to the president's office, which will then get connected to different experts, subject matter experts based on your inquiry here at CA. And that would be answered in a very transparent way that you'll be able to see as a board member, and other board members will be able to see that information and that response. So it helps bring some transparency in there. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into these tools for Delilah and Wesley when we have more of a connected one-on-one around that. But those are really the three key technologies that the board interface with from a CA perspective. In terms of how we do meetings here, you guys may do Teams meetings for sort of lesser, more ad hoc sort of meeting structures or connected structures, but from a public and board work perspective, we use and leverage Zoom for, like we're doing here tonight, for community-facing meetings, and that's how, from a hybrid perspective, community members, or if you do participate in a board meeting, if you're not able to attend in person, it will be set up through a Zoom portal. And that is all I have on the tech space, and I'll kick it over to Sean.
All right. So now you will hear from Bill and Colin to tell you what it's like to be a board member.
Oh, thanks, Sean. No pressure. All right. Oh, can we even get the clicker? All right. So.
Let's see, give Julia a second to pull that up, or Drew.
Oh, okay. So do you want like the first four and I'll take the last four, or?
Sure.
Okay.
Are we winging it here, huh?
See bullet number 2. All right. Well, welcome everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to talk. The staff asked us to put something together on just a few things about what it's like to be a board member. Let's see. Colin, if you could take the first couple there and.
Sure. So I'm not going to read out each individual bullet points, but to kind of get to the spirit of some of this stuff. So being prepared, I think of that particularly as reviewing the packet. We're typically pretty good about having the packet posted on the CA website, typically the Friday before our meetings, and that will have all the information that you need to have for that upcoming meeting. Being able to attend meeting events, as B just mentioned, our board meetings are typically hybrid, so even if you're not able to attend in person, we'd love to still have you if you're able to join remotely. A large part of our responsibilities is also sharing some of the information that we have here back to our villages and village boards and our residents. So thinking about how you do that, both kind of in a formal capacity through your village board and other means that may be appropriate. Yeah, I'll turn it over to you real quick.
Okay, all right. And as we get through our year here and we get into some voting, so pretty much all of our votes have impact. We have over 100,000 people in Columbia, as was said, 17,500 members. We have a fairly robust natural ecosystem or managed natural ecosystem. many of our votes have real impact on real people. It's an $80 million organization. It's not a PTA. So when we get ready to vote, make sure that pretty much every bullet point above this has been covered. We have about 6 days to take a look at our packets before we come to our meetings. We have, if you haven't realized it already, a very dynamic, engaged staff here who oftentimes are more than happy to sit down and provide points of clarification if you're not sure on any points prior to us meeting and getting ready to vote on things. So please use all of those environments. And a shout out to Armsby, because one of the most frustrating things is trying to manage a Microsoft suite of apps in a Chromebook environment is kind of a vinegar and oil kind of thing. So glad to hear that we're upgrading on that. That will help getting us prepared. Code of Civility and Robert's Rules, I would say that 90% of the time, everybody's super great about this and on point. We do get into some passionate discussions here, and we just always got to remember to come back and understand that, you know, we're working for the betterment of the people of Columbia. All of these meetings are going to be recorded and put up on YouTube. We get about 300 views of each meeting. That may not seem like a lot, but 100 of those views is me trying to remember what the heck I said. So it goes a long way to make sure that we are respectful of each other as we move through our meetings, make our decision-making, and then come to final votes to make sure that we follow both civility and Robert's rules. Let's see. The biggest thing with being on the CA board is having a longer view, which is done through our strategic planning. We have a very dynamic strategic plan that we enacted last year. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But part of that plan is that each year the board has to set some fairly measurable goals in order to be successful and move along as we go. In addition to the strategic plan, CA is semi-famous for developing master plans for aquatics master plans. Our natural resource master plan is currently underway, and various other areas of focus. The board can recommend a master plan be enacted. Sometimes it comes from staff, but we certainly participate in that. And then that helps us set the direction on a longer scale for this city. And the last thing is that coincident with all the duty of care and duty of loyalty and all the other HOA Act kind of things we're going to learn about later, our decisions are made here in the boardroom or joining virtually in the board meetings. We don't do decisions via email or out of everything we do is for public consumption so that they understand what our votes were and what our thinking was leading up to those votes. So that's kind of just in a nutshell, a little flavor of the CA board experience. And I'm going to throw it over to Colin here.
So we have 15 regular board meetings, so they're typically once a month in those months that you see there, and then we have twice in May, September, February, and April. We'll talk about board committee meetings more, I think, both later tonight and definitely next week. But those board committees are meeting quarterly. And then at the chair's discretion or sometimes from the president or a combination thereof, we will call closed meetings as they are necessary. And those are typically running, they could run from an hour to 2 hours. It's been kind of our average. And going back to our regular board meetings, it really depends on the agenda, kind of the cadence where we are in the point of the year. You know, I think anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. We're definitely out by 11 p.m. because that's when the old building alarm goes off. So that's kind of what the time commitment there looks like. Making sure that you're going to your village board meetings and knowing when those are happening as well. And then, of course, any other kind of relationship stakeholder events that either CA is putting on or the villages or some conjunction thereof.
Okay. Just kind of a quick review of the major things that we did as a board the last fiscal year ending yesterday, so we're fresh. As I said, we did finalize a 5-year strategic plan. That was 18 months in the making. Sean and his team did a dynamic job of putting together. They interviewed the board, they interviewed key players, brought in some content that a consultant did, who interviewed other portions of the community, and I think we have a very effective, workable strategic plan. We evaluated options. This is always so wordy. Evaluated options for more efficient operation of CA facilities. This was a board-generated goal for the staff and the board to work on last year. Staff went to work, spoke with the villages, engaged them, came up with a couple of options, and presented those options to the board. That currently still is just for the board to consider. There is no concrete action associated with it, but it was an interesting look at how the villages use their facilities and if there was any way that could be augmented or improved. The CA board made a determination on purchasing this building. That was an option this year, or last year, I should say. Something you should know, the Columbia Association has rented office space in Columbia since about 1978. For a couple of years, CA was in its own building on its own property. It was in a bus depot, a literal bus depot. Board meetings were in a bus depot for a couple of years in the mid-'70s. But since then, we've rented in Oakland Mills and Town Center in Owen Brown, and we're back here in Owen Brown. The option came up. The current climate for purchasing this particular property was not advantageous, but I think it opened a lot of eyes for what could be in the future. So that may be part of our discussions moving forward. The improvement of community engagement through the website and GIS. The website improvement is coming,
Yes.
right? That's
At the end of the month.
That's a big lift. There's a lot going on there. The specific, the GIS, Geographic Information System, we had a presentation roughly 6 weeks ago, right?
Maybe not even that long.
Yeah, regarding the GIS products that are now available, regarding geolocating yourself within the Columbia area, surrounding facilities and events that are going on, and linking and be able to find walking, biking, driving paths from where you are to events nearby. It is really, I think, a game changer, and I encourage everybody to take a look at that. Once again, the last two bullets here, this is began. That's a big hint that that's going to be part of our discussion this year, too. We began last year the development of the CA Natural Resources Stewardship Plan. From all accounts, a successful charrette was done by Jeremy and his team, supported by many other parts of the organization, to get some ideas and get things started. Taking that data in and working with that into the framework of the master plan is underway, and that's going to come back for us to discuss this year. So let's get ready for that. And then last is the consolidation of CA board policies. We left the sexy thing for last here. John Kuchno, our general counsel, has done a fantastic job of reviewing all of the plan or all of the policies that CA currently has. Some of them date back to, I guess, 1972 and kind of reflect the times of 1972. It may not be how things are done in 2025. And has done quite a bit of work on that. I expect moving forward in this next board year / fiscal year, we will spend additional time working on archiving policies that are no longer consistent with our current operations, cataloging and numbering our policies, and establishing sunset policies for everything else. And that's kind of the board and review, and I'll throw it back to you, Sean.
We have one more slide.
Oh, I have one more slide. Shoot. Oh, the director guidebook. We need to pass out the director guidebook.
Everyone should have it.
All right, you're complete. We'll take
There we go. Now,
It's John's time to shine.
yes. All right. I hope I teed you up well enough there, Sean. John?
Well, I thought about giving you some lawyer jokes.
Oh, boy.
Liven things up, but maybe in the interest of time, since we're running ahead of schedule and this is not exactly exciting, maybe I'll hold it to the legal presentation we're going to do in a few weeks. There is some legal stuff in here, but hopefully we'll make it simple and not too in-depth, and you'll be able to get it. If you don't, feel free to catch me later or whatever and ask questions. So my purpose here tonight, and I am, as been indicated, the general counsel, which I take care of the legal stuff, basically means I try to keep us out of trouble. That's my job. I'm also the corporate secretary and the principal ethics officer, which also hopefully keeps us all out of trouble. So a variety of roles, but my purpose tonight is to talk about these organizational meetings that you're going to have next week. And so I will go over briefly, what do I do here? Oh, okay, there we go. So this presentation, we'll talk about the annual meeting of the members of the Columbia Association, the organizational meeting of the Board of Directors, the meeting of the Columbia Council, and you'll see right there the commonality between those first three things is meeting. You're going to have 3 meetings next week. 3 meetings in one night, 3 for the price of 1. But hopefully they won't be that involved. They're mostly, they're for the purpose of organization. A lot of it is formality. I'll explain it in a minute. We'll get a little bit into the historical context of how we got to this point and how these things developed. And then, again, how to prepare for these meetings next week. There's a few things we think would be helpful if you do before. And then board committees, it's been touched on before. There are 3 standing committees. We'll explain what those are. And it's important that you at least have a basic understanding now, because next week those board committees would be appointed. And so you want to know what they're about and how the work they do. Okay, that's the agenda. So here's the way it works. You all, and first of all, congratulations to everyone who, is staying on, who won unopposed, who won with opposition. I know it's, having run myself, which was not a pleasant experience, it's not easy. And you deserve you deserve credit for putting your hat into the ring and doing it. And your commitment is certainly, it serves Columbia well and your neighbors, and I think you ought to be commended just for that. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, and so I know as a staff we thank you for your commitment and your time. All right, you all have been elected, the people this year, and the 3 people who stayed on and didn't have to go through the process, as members of the Columbia Council. That was what was voted on. You are on the Columbia Council. Basically, the Columbia Council does nothing, okay? And it's changed over the years, but you are, as members of the Columbia Council, you become the members of the Columbia Association. Now, if we were a for-profit organization or for-profit corporation, the members are usually the stockholders, right? Those are the members. If you own a share of stock, you own the company. Well, we don't make a profit, so in a nonprofit corporation and the way we're set up, we don't have everyone who is a resident of Columbia being a member. The members of the Columbia Association are you, the 10 people who were elected. Those are the only members of the Columbia Association. And you are a representative of the village that elected you as the Columbia Council representative. You are also, as a Columbia Council representative, you are automatically a member of the Board of Directors, okay? So when we talk about members, we're talking about you as a person on the Board of Directors. And so everything applies to you. Now, the Columbia Council, as indicated here, was initially set up when Columbia was formed many years ago, and the Rouse Company did, as an unincorporated advisory group. And the purpose was to make recommendations to the village associations for the benefit and welfare of the people who lived here. But it no longer functions in this capacity, and I'll get into it a little bit later, but what happened in October of 2005 is the Columbia Council basically voted to end its regular meetings, and all it does now is hold a meeting next week and basically elects a chair and vice chair, and it's done. That's all you do as Columbia Council. All the work that you do is through the board as members of the board of directors. The functions has shifted over the years. The only thing you need to know is you are elected to the Columbia Council, you become a member of the board of directors, and that's the role where you'll be conducting business on behalf of CA. So that's the purpose of the 3 different meetings we have next week. So what do? We have these 3 meetings. First, we have the annual meeting of the members of the Columbia Association, all right? You are, as I said, you are the members, not the people who voted for you in the villages. You are the members. And what happens is that the board that currently exists, the FY25, we're now in FY26 as of today, the meeting is called to order by the FY25 Board of Directors and the FY25 Board Chair, and the minutes are approved. But before adjournment of that meeting, the new people are elected. So there are 10 directors, and you are elected to be members of the Board of Directors. And the new directors come in, take their seats. The old directors, we wave them goodbye. They're done. We're done. Okay, that's the first meeting of the Columbia Association. Then we shift into more significant business. Okay, we're done with that meeting. We start another meeting, and it's called the organizational meeting of the Board of Directors. All right, and important business is conducted here. First of all, you're going to be distributed several things to review and sign. Very important. We need to get your signature on the Code of Business Conduct and Policies, the policy for reporting violations of the Code of Business Conduct and Policy. The Code of Conduct for meetings talks about civility. Bill talked about some of that before. Armsby talked about the IT and how important that is, and the security and awareness. And acceptable use policy, those things we also ask you to sign off on. So all those things we need you to review and sign, and actually we need you to do it at the meeting, right? I mean, it's important before we conduct business that we get those things. So we'll make those things available for you beforehand so that you have time to read them. Basically, the Code of Business Conduct talks about, what you can do ethically, what you can't, what we define as a conflict of interest, what's self-dealing, and then if there are ethical issues, how to report those, how it works. We have an ethics panel that is an independent outside group that's composed of 3 attorneys who review ethical complaints made against the board and the senior leadership team. So they take care of any ethical issues. The rest of the staff, I review as the principal ethics officer. So if there's a complaint made against any of the basically people in this room, an outside group reviews that, and they make a report, and it goes to the board, and then the board decides what to do with it. And there's confidentiality remain that holds to these reports and until the board takes action. So those are the things that have to be signed, and it's important that you know and familiarize yourself with those before that. Then we have the election of the chair and vice chair of the board for this fiscal year, the FY26 fiscal year. That's conducted next week. And I'm sure no one has talked about that beforehand and has any feelings, but the actual vote happens next week. So I would say at a minimum, think about that, okay? Because you are going to vote next week, and at the end of that meeting, you'll have a chair and vice chair. Also at the meeting, the organizational meeting, there are appointments made to the 3 standing committees, and they're all very important committees of the Board Operations Committee, the Audit Committee, and the Risk Management Committee. And I'll explain what they do, and Jackie will explain the Audit Committee in a minute. But those appointments are also made next week. So all this is done. And finally, the selection of the CA representatives to the Inner Arbor Trust. That's the organization that there's an agreement with CA. Now they basically maintain the Symphony Woods property. We have an easement agreement with them, and they're responsible for certain programming. Pursuant to the agreement CA has with IAT, we select members of the board to be on the board of directors there, and those selections are made at the meeting next week. Finally, at the meeting, the organizational meeting, there's the reappointment of officers of the Columbia Association. I mentioned I'm the secretary, so we would propose that Sean be the president. There'd be secretary appointed, treasurer appointed. That's corporate formalities, but they have to be appointed every year. And then we'll review the schedule. I think Colin referred to that in a general way, but the schedule of board of directors meetings and potentially work sessions for the year, how that would work. So that's what happens at the organizational meeting. That's the longest of the meetings next week. That's, I would say, the primary focus. All very important things to consider because it sets basically the tone for the rest of the year. So that's what we do at the organizational meeting. And finally, we have the meeting of the Columbia Council. After we adjourn the organizational meeting, the Columbia Council meets. And again, this is an organization that basically, except for meeting once a year and electing a chair and vice chair, according to an agreement was made back in 2005, it basically has no other purpose. But because it was set up for the villages to elect members of the Columbia Council, that's why it continues to function, because it's in the village documents. So that's the way it works. I hope it's not too confusing. That's what would happen. This is a little bit of historical context. Basically, you may know that we were founded back in the 60s when a bunch of guys went out and surreptitiously purchased a bunch of property and put together a bunch of lots by the Howard Research and Development Corporation, which through various iterations is essentially Howard Hughes Corporation now. Wild Lake had an election, held it was the first village. There were a few villages followed thereafter. Initially, the Columbia Council had this more prominent role, and the people who were appointed to the Columbia Council were people appointed by the developer, HRD. That shifted over time so that eventually the HRD representatives left and they became elected by the residents. And the charter was amended, so we got to the point where we're now the Columbia Council functions as kind of a pro forma group, and the board runs CA. That's the way it works. All right, how do you prepare for these meetings next week? As mentioned, look at these documents, be familiar with them, make sure you're comfortable with them. I don't think there's anything particularly controversial, but you're signing a legal document, okay? So, you should never would want anybody to sign anything, that has a binding effect unless you read them. So read over these things, all of these things. The code of conduct, the IT policy is very important. All those things, just familiarize yourself, read them over. Again, I don't think you're going to have a problem with it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to, call me. We'll answer them. But I don't think anything that it's unlike anything, or is not unlike anything you've seen before. Other thing to do is that handbook or the guidebook, whatever it's called, a guidebook, right? Look at that because it gives you a pretty good idea of how we function. You're not expected to memorize it or know everything. I think we generally follow Robert's Rules of Order. Not exactly, I mean, there are certain exceptions that we have, but if you're familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, that's how we function. There are certain exceptions that we have, but that's how we run the meetings. We need to have an organization. And then, importantly, go through in your head who you might think you would want to consider to elect as the persons to be chair and vice chair. So a little homework associated with those organizational meetings, so you're ready for next week. All right, the board committees, the last thing here. The Board Operations Committee is one of the 3 standing committees. Important functions is basically the BOC, as we call it, basically sets the agendas for the quarter. And it meets quarterly, and we rotate board members through that, so everybody gets a shot to be on it. The chair of the board serves as the BOC chair. The other members are Sean, the president CEO, the vice chair of the board, and the 2 board members who rotate throughout the year. It meets quarterly. And as I said, the idea is, okay, we've got 3 months of meetings. How are we going to stack those? What do we want to consider? That's the main purpose of the BOC. So everybody gets a shot at that. I'll leave the audit committee to Jackie. The other committee I'll talk about is the risk management committee. It was referred to earlier. Important, right? We want to keep the risk to the organization as a minimum. We're talking basically legal risk here. The board meets once a quarter. 3 board members are on it. We have an independent knowledge with someone with specific knowledge of risk management, and there's a gentleman who's been serving who does a fantastic job, who has a great background. And we basically decide, as members of the risk management committee, how we handle, potential liability situations. And those meetings, pursuant to the HOA Act, and we'll get into some of the legalities, and it's been referred to before, functionally under Maryland law, we're a homeowners association. Okay, we follow the Homeowners Association Act. It's not a great fit, but we're subject to those laws. And under that, there are certain ways that you could hold closed meetings, and one is to discuss legal advice and business transactions. And so functionally, the Risk Management Committee talks about things that are confidential, and those meetings are closed. They're not open to the public, unlike some of the others. Final committee to consider is the Audit Committee, and a very, very important function there. And I'll turn it over to Jackie Tuma for that.
Can I use your mic?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. All right, so hello again. I'm Jackie Tuma, Director of Audit and Advisory Services. I only have one slide, but make no mistake, this is where all the fun happens. So the Audit Committee has 4 key functions. It performs, really conducts itself and supports oversight responsibilities on behalf of the board. Those 4 areas are overseeing CA's financial reporting, its systems of internal controls, the audit process, and CA's ethics program. I'll talk really quickly about each of those. So Susan mentioned that the board as a whole contemplates and approves the annual budget. However, the quarterly financial reporting results are presented and discussed in the audit committee meetings. So that happens every quarter. As far as the systems of internal controls, it's a lot of the work that I do with my team, and it's really all about, what are the key risks that face CA, how is the organization managing and mitigating those risks, and, are the right guardrails in place as we evolve as an organization. As far as the audit process, again, the work that is done internally, audit and advisory services and projects, but also the external audit. There's an independent audit of CA's financial statements every year, and an independent firm also audits performs a regulatory audit of CA's 401k plan. And then the ethics program is the responsibility of general counsel, as John said, but from an oversight at a governance level perspective, the audit committee oversees and monitors that ethics program to ensure that it is functioning as it should. So as far as the structure, there are 5 committee members. 3 are CA directors, and what's unique about this committee is that there are 2 community members who have the expertise in finance and in audit for obvious reasons based on, you know, what is discussed and covered in that committee. So, you know, with that, we also, though, really do ask that any board member that has financial or audit expertise and strong business acumen, you know, we encourage you to, if not serve on the committee, certainly attend those meetings. Again, those community members are experts in the fields that we cover, including accounting, auditing, financial reporting. Now, with that, I will just say that the charter for the audit committee requires that at least one board member be either a chair or the vice chair of the committee, so you can't have the 2 community members who are not board members both be chair and vice chair. You can have 2 board members be vice chair and chair. Also, a quorum is the majority of its members, so 3, but if 3 attend, at least 2 have to be board members. So there's that kind of guardrail around board control and participation in those committees. We do encourage, when it's at all possible, that at least one board member continue to serve from the prior year to the current year for continuity. But fortunately, we also have some continuity built in with our community members that return. As far as the meeting schedule, there are 5 meetings per year. 4 of them coincide with those quarterly financial reporting overviews that I mentioned. And then the 5th is actually the first meeting of the fiscal year that is held in closed session, and it is primarily to go over and approve a draft audit plan for the year. And then I'll just mention for the 4 quarterly meetings, there are 2 parts to it. There's the open portion, which is where the financial results are discussed, and then a closed portion that discusses audit matters. Let's see, so there are other key responsibilities that I didn't cover. I do have a couple copies of the charter that I will give you to review. And just wanted to quickly mention that whether you serve on the committee or not, all board members are welcome to come to all closed and open portions of the audit committee meetings. And the open portions where we discuss and the financial results are presented are also recorded as a podcast and posted on the CA website. So not only for any board member that might want to hear back, you know, they're looking at the quarterly financial report and wondering about a variance or how we're doing compared to budget. The CFO does just a great presentation every quarter, and then a lot of really good dialogue and discussion about how the numbers the operations translate into numbers. So that's available, and it's available for community members if, you know, people in your communities are asking questions about CA's financial results. And then I will just finally mention that any board member that's new to the committee, I do like a one-on-one orientation that also involves a deeper dive into, you know, what is audit and advisory services, what are we doing, how do we add value, and anybody, whether they serve on the committee, I'm happy to provide that type of orientation. And then am I turning it back to you for?
Back to me.
Okay.
All right, that completes the board orientation. So if anyone has any questions, comments? There's no judgment if you don't, that's fine, there's a lot to absorb.
A lot of information, yeah.
All right, well, I guess that concludes the meeting, and we'll see everyone on the 8th.
Hey, board members, if you can just hang back, we need to plan for a quick closed board meeting before the 8th. So I need to just kind of get buy-in as to what day you'd like to meet for a brief meeting? It's a personnel issue.
Are Paul and Chris going to be?
We will certainly reach out to them, yeah.
Okay.
So who wants to come on Tuesday?
I'm out of town the 5th through the 11th.
All right. Yeah. Well, we all have board meetings next week. I understand that, but
You could try to do it on the 8th before the meeting.
I suppose we could do, well, I guess we could do that.
So I'm gonna be virtual on the 8th.
Okay.
Not one to be while I'm talking.
Okay. All right.
What date are we at?
To be in this